My name is Cassandra, and I'm 32 years old, a medical researcher, a sister, and apparently the villain in my own family's story. Because right now, as I stand outside a hospital room, the person fighting for her life on that bed, the one hooked to tubes and fading monitors, is my sister, Amanda. The same woman who once destroyed my life without blinking. They say blood is thicker than water. But what if that blood turned poisonous the moment it touched your dreams? I still remember the night everything collapsed. The emails, the headlines, the betrayal that ended my career. And now, after months of silence, my parents call and say the words I never thought I'd hear. Amanda needs your bone marrow. You're her only hope. Only hope. Funny, isn't it? Because she never gave me any when she leaked my research, the work that could have changed everything for cancer treatment. And now, fate wants me to be her savior. I stare through the glass at her pale face. And for a second, I almost feel something. Then the memories hit. The humiliation, the pity, the loss. The nurse's voice breaks the silence. Dr. Cassandra, are you ready for the compatibility test? I whisper to myself, ready? I was ready once, before she ruined me. I take one last look at Amanda. Then I shake my head and walk away. My mother's cry echoes behind me. Cassandra, please. She's your sister. But what if she's not? What if the truth hiding behind that word, sister, is darker than anyone in this family ever imagined? Because this isn't just a story about revenge. It's about discovering who you really are. When the people you love the most turn out to be strangers. Before everything shattered, I thought my life was perfect. I was 28, freshly promoted at the Genova Medical Institute, leading a small research team studying cell regeneration in cancer treatment. My days were long, my nights were longer, but I loved every second of it. People used to say I was born to fix things. Machines, equations, people. Maybe that's why I never noticed when my own life started to break. At home, everything looked picture-perfect too. My parents, David and Elise, lived in a beautiful suburban house with a garden Amanda always took credit for, even though I was usually the one pruning it during my rare visits. Amanda was my older sister by 3 years, the golden one. Her smile could win anyone over. She worked in PR, knew everyone in town, and somehow made every family dinner revolve around her. I used to admire her confidence, until I learned how much of it came from knowing she'd always be the favorite. Still, I didn't mind. She was family, and I believed love covered all kinds of unfairness. One Sunday dinner, I remember showing them my lab proposal, the project that could have pushed our cancer research 10 years ahead. Amanda skimmed through the pages, nodded politely, and said, "Wow, Cass, that's complicated. You're always chasing something impossible." I laughed it off. That's what siblings do, right? Tease, joke, move on. But later that night, I caught her in the living room with my laptop open. When I asked what she was doing, she smiled and said, "Just checking your presentation." I was curious. I didn't think much of it then. After all, she was my sister. Why wouldn't I trust her? I had no idea that curiosity was about to cost me everything. The next few weeks were a blur of excitement. My proposal got accepted for international review. If it passed, my name would be on the map. I'd already started drafting potential funding requests, preparing slides, gathering data. Amanda, on the other hand, was busy planning her engagement party. Our parents couldn't stop talking about it. I remember sitting in that living room, hearing them gush about her fiancé. Successful, charming, family-oriented. While I stared at the research folder glowing on my laptop screen, whispering to myself, "It's okay. One day they'll be proud of me too." That day came sooner than expected. A call from the institute. "Your proposal's been shortlisted for the Global Research Grant." I hung up, trembling with joy. I called Amanda first. She didn't answer. I texted her anyway. "You won't believe this. I made it to the finals." She replied hours later. "Proud of you, sis. You deserve it." I thought it was sincere. I thought we were celebrating together. But while I was preparing for my biggest presentation ever, Amanda was quietly preparing something else. Something that would burn every bridge I had built. Even now, looking back, I wonder if there were signs. The strange tone in her messages, the way she kept asking about my login details, pretending she wanted to help me organize slides. I missed every warning, because that's what trust does. It blinds you, until the moment it explodes. If you've ever trusted someone so deeply that you ignored every red flag, you'll understand what came next. Because my downfall didn't come from a stranger, or a rival scientist, or fate. It came from home. Do you believe family jealousy can destroy a person's life? Tell me what you think in the comments, because that's exactly what I had to learn the hard way. The morning it all fell apart started like any other. I was halfway through a cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. An email from the board of directors. Subject: urgent data integrity breach. My hands froze around the mug. I opened it, and my heart stopped. They'd received an anonymous tip that my research wasn't original, that it matched data already published in a rival company's report. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe someone hacked my files. Maybe the data leak was internal. But when I opened the attachment, I saw something that made my stomach twist into knots. It wasn't just similar. It was identical. The formulas, the trial logs, the molecular charts, every line, every note. Mine. Copied word for word. And right at the bottom of the stolen document was a name I knew too well. Amanda Lewis, Public Relations Manager, Vericin Pharmaceuticals, my sister's company. For 10 minutes, I couldn't breathe. I read it over and over, my mind screaming for another explanation. But the truth doesn't whisper. It hits you like a punch. Amanda, my sister, had taken my research and handed it to her company, and they published it first. Everything I'd worked for. Years of sleepless nights, late experiments, rejected drafts, every sacrifice. Gone overnight. By noon, the Institute launched a formal investigation. By 5 p.m., I was placed on indefinite suspension. And by midnight, my name was trending online. Dr. Cassandra Lewis accused of plagiarism. They called me a fraud, a thief, a disgrace to science. No one cared about the truth. They only cared about the scandal. That night, I drove to Amanda's house. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that sounds like anger on the windshield. She opened the door, dressed in her perfect silk robe, holding a glass of wine. Like nothing had happened. "Cass," she said softly, "I was going to call you." I stepped inside before she could finish. "Don't." "Just tell me why." She blinked, pretending not to understand. "What are you talking about?" I threw the printed report on her table. "Don't play dumb, Amanda. My research, my life's work. You sent it to Vericin." Her expression flickered. Shock, guilt, something else. Then she smiled faintly. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." "Go that far?" My voice cracked. "You sold it." "I shared it," she said calmly. "You wouldn't understand how these things work. You're too idealistic." I stared at her in disbelief. Idealistic. That was her word for honest. "You destroyed my career for what? A promotion? A bonus?" She looked away. "It was supposed to help both of us." I thought, if the company used your data first, we could get the results to market faster. I slammed my hand on the table. "Don't lie to me. You wanted credit. You wanted to be the hero again, Silence." Then she whispered, "You've always had everything, Cass. The brains, the admiration. Mom and Dad talk about you like you're the second coming of Einstein. Do you know what that feels like?" I laughed bitterly. "Yes, it feels like you destroying everything I've ever built for a moment." She looked small, like the sister I once knew. Then she straightened, her eyes cold again. "It's just data, Cassandra. You'll bounce back," but I didn't. The next day, I was officially terminated. The Institute appreciated my service, but couldn't associate with someone under investigation. My research was discredited. My team was reassigned. And every door I'd worked to open for years slammed shut. I became a ghost in my own field. No one returned my calls. No one defended me. Even my parents told me to keep quiet until it blows over. But it didn't blow over. It consumed everything. When I confronted Amanda again, she cried, begged for forgiveness, said it was a mistake. But mistakes don't come with corporate press releases and legal contracts. This wasn't a slip-up. It was betrayal. Cold, calculated, irreversible. Weeks turned into months. I sold my apartment, moved to a smaller city, took up small consulting work under a pseudonym. And every night, I replayed the same question in my head. Why would she do it? Jealousy? Pride? Revenge for something I didn't even know I'd done? But there was no answer. Just that hollow silence that betrayal leaves behind. The kind that makes you question not just what you lost, but who you are. One afternoon, I got a message from my father. Just one line. Your sister isn't doing well. Call us. I deleted it without replying. Because when someone burns down your world, you don't walk back into the smoke. Pause. Slow narration tone. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, you know it doesn't just hurt. It rewires you. You stop believing in words like forever, family, and love. You start believing in one thing only: distance. And that's what I chose. Distance from the past. Distance from Amanda. Distance from every memory that made me feel small. At least until the day that distance disappeared. With a single phone call. 6 months. That's how long it had been since I'd spoken to anyone in my family. 6 months since I'd heard Amanda's voice. 6 months since I'd stopped being Dr. Cassandra Lewis, medical researcher, and started being a woman who worked in the shadows, freelancing, editing papers for people whose names still mattered. I was surviving, not living. My apartment was small, the kind of place where silence hums louder than any machine. Every night, I'd pour black coffee, open my laptop, and try to convince myself that rebuilding was possible. Then one evening, the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, until I saw the name flashing on the screen. Mom. I hesitated, then picked up. Cassandra? Her voice was shaky. What is it, Mom? A pause. Then 3 words that cracked the air. It's your sister. My stomach tightened. What about her? She's sick, honey. The doctors say it's leukemia. They need a bone marrow match. She took a breath that sounded like hope. They tested us. None of us match, but you might. The room suddenly felt smaller. Leukemia, bone marrow, Amanda. All the words swirled together like static. I'm not doing it, I said, sharper than I meant to. Cassandra, please. She destroyed my life, Mom. Her voice cracked. She made a mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake that cost me everything. She's dying. So was I whispered. You just didn't notice. I hung up. And for the next hour, I sat there in silence, staring at my reflection in the dark window. Was I really that heartless? Or was I just finally protecting myself? The scientist in me understood the odds. The sister in me wanted to ignore them. But every time guilt tried to crawl in, I remembered her smile when she said, It's just data, Cassandra. You'll bounce back number. I wasn't going to bounce back for her again. 2 days later, another call. This time from my father. He never begged before. Cassie, the doctors need your answer soon. She doesn't have much time. I already gave it. Please, he said softly. You're not like her. You have a good heart? I almost laughed. A good heart. If only he knew how hollow it felt now. For weeks, I avoided every call, every message. But guilt doesn't need a ringtone to reach you. It whispers when the lights are off. It sits beside you when you try to sleep. I started dreaming about her. Not the woman who betrayed me, but the girl who used to braid my hair before school, who'd hold my hand when I got scared of storms. In one dream, she was standing in our old backyard, calling my name, her hands covered in dirt, burying something I couldn't see. I woke up crying. The next morning, I made an appointment. Not for her. For me. I needed to know if I could even be a match. Maybe then the guilt would stop. At the hospital, they drew blood, sent it to the lab, and told me to wait. I sat there staring at the white walls, listening to the faint hum of machines, and thought about irony. I'd spent my career trying to save lives, and now the only one I could save was the person who'd ended mine. The nurse smiled kindly as she sealed the test tube. "You're doing a good thing," she said. I didn't respond, because I wasn't sure if it was a good thing or just a way to silence the war inside me. Days passed. No results yet. Then one afternoon, I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was soft, trembling. "She keeps asking for you, Cass. Please, just see her once I deleted the message." But it stayed anyway. Not in the phone. In my head. A week later, the hospital called. "The compatibility results are ready. You can come in anytime I scheduled the appointment." And on the morning of the test review, I stood in front of my mirror, hands shaking, trying to convince myself that I was ready. Not for forgiveness, just for closure. But when I reached the hospital doors, something inside me froze. I saw Amanda's name on the patient board, and all the old anger came flooding back. Her face, her lies, my career burning behind her smile. The nurse called my name. "Dr. Cassandra?" I opened my mouth to say yes, but what came out instead was silence. I turned around and walked out. That was the day I realized revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just walks quietly away. This story isn't about heroes or villains. It's about choices. And sometimes the hardest choice is the one that doesn't make you look good. If you believe every story has two sides, hit subscribe, because what happens next will change everything Cassandra thought she knew. I thought that was the end of it. But a week later, I woke up to a headline that made my blood run cold. "Local woman's final plea for sister's help goes viral." Amanda had posted a video from her hospital bed. Tears in her eyes. Her voice weak. "She hates me, but I don't hate her. I just want my sister back." The internet devoured it. People called me selfish, cruel, inhuman. Strangers messaged me saying they'd never forgive someone like me. I lost clients, friends, reputation. Again. Amanda had destroyed me once through science. Now she was destroying me through sympathy. And yet, part of me still felt the same pull. A whisper that said, "What if this is the last time you'll ever see her alive?" But I ignored it, because some wounds don't heal with time. They just go silent, waiting for the next storm to uncover what's buried beneath. It's strange how silence becomes noise once the world starts talking about you. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Journalists, old classmates, even former coworkers, everyone suddenly wanted to understand my side. But there was nothing to explain. You can't explain betrayal to people who only see a headline. My landlord slipped a note under my door. "Please stop the media showing up here." Even my neighbor stopped saying hi. I wasn't the doctor anymore. I wasn't the victim. I was the villain who refused to save her dying sister. One afternoon, I heard a soft knock. I thought it was another reporter. But when I opened the door, it was my father. He looked older. Not just tired, but broken in places that sleep couldn't fix. "Dad?" He didn't speak at first. He just stepped inside, looked around my small apartment, and sighed. "You live like a ghost, Cass. Better than living like a liar." He flinched, then handed me an envelope. It was Amanda's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but curiosity is a cruel thing. It makes you read what you swore you wouldn't. The letter was short, painfully so. Cass, I know I ruined your life. I've replayed it 1,000 times. I was jealous, I was scared, and I was stupid. But I never hated you. I just wanted to be seen. Now I'm disappearing, and you're the only one who can stop it. I understand if you can't forgive me, but please don't let my mistake be the last thing that defines us. Amanda. My eyes burned by the end, but the tears weren't sympathy. They were anger, because even dying, she was still framing it around her pain. I crumpled the letter and threw it into the trash. Dad didn't react. He just stood there, watching me. Finally, he said quietly, "She's not the only one dying, Cass." I looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" He swallowed hard. "Your mother's heart isn't strong anymore. This stress, it's killing her." The words hit harder than I expected. He continued, "If you can't do it for Amanda, then do it for your mother." I didn't answer. I just stared at the floor, feeling something I hated. Doubt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Dad's voice, Amanda's letter, and the sound of everything I'd lost echoing inside my head. The line between right and wrong was blurring. Was I protecting myself or punishing her? 3 days later, the hospital called again. This time, it wasn't the nurse. It was Dr. Patel, one of my old mentors. "Cassandra," he said softly, "I've been treating your sister." I froze. "You?" She asked for me specifically. Said she trusted me to reach you, I sighed. "Doctor to doctor, you know what I'm doing isn't wrong." He hesitated. "Medically? Maybe not. But morally, that's not my field." There was a long silence. Then he said something I didn't expect. "Sometimes forgiveness isn't about them, Cass. It's about freeing yourself." He paused, then added, "But before you decide, there's something you should know. Something your parents never told you." My heartbeat quickened. "What are you talking about?" He hesitated again, then stopped himself. "Come to the hospital. Please. You deserve the truth from them, not from me." And then he hung up. That night, I sat staring at my wall again, but this time I couldn't think straight. What truth? What secret? Had Amanda done more than sabotage my research? Or was there something deeper? The next morning, I found myself driving. I didn't even decide to. I just ended up outside the hospital. The automatic doors slid open, and the sterile smell of disinfectant hit me like memory. Every step felt like walking back into a past life. The receptionist looked up. "Visiting?" I nodded. "Amanda Lewis, room 412. She pointed me to the elevator. My palms were sweating by the time the doors opened. I didn't expect what I saw. Amanda looked small. Her hair gone, her eyes hollow but bright. Like someone who still believed she could fix everything if she just said the right words. When she saw me, she froze, then smiled weakly. "You came." I wanted to say something cutting, something that would protect me, but all that came out was, "Don't thank me yet." She laughed, a dry, painful sound. "I didn't think you'd ever look at me again." Neither did I. We sat there in silence for a while. Machines beeped softly between us, measuring the distance words couldn't cross. Finally, I said, "Why did you do it, Amanda? Why destroy everything I built?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I thought if I could prove I was better, Mom and Dad would love me more." I blinked. "You think this was about love?" She nodded. "You were always the golden one, Cass. The genius, the miracle child." Her voice trembled. "But you're not the only one who deserves to know the truth." I frowned. "What truth?" Amanda hesitated. Her lips quivered. "You're not—" The door opened. Mom stepped in, her face pale. "Stop," she said sharply. "Amanda, not now." The tension was instant. My heart pounded. "What does she mean?" I asked. Mom avoided my eyes. "Nothing that matters right now." "Don't lie to me, Mom." Her lips trembled. Tears pooled in her eyes. Cassandra, you're adopted. The room spun. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard correctly. What? Amanda closed her eyes, whispering. She was never supposed to find out like this. My voice broke. You knew? Mom nodded silently. Since when? Since the day we brought you home. You were 3 months old. You were a blessing we never thought we'd have. I stepped back, dizzy. So all these years, every word about being sisters was a lie? No, Mom cried. You are sisters in every way that matters. But I couldn't hear her. The world was muffled, my pulse loud in my ears. Amanda whispered, I didn't tell anyone. Not even when I found out. But when I ruined your research, it wasn't just jealousy. It was fear. Fear that if you knew, you'd leave us. For a moment, no one spoke. Then I laughed bitterly. So let me get this straight. You destroyed my career to keep me close? Amanda nodded weakly. I thought if you failed, you'd need me. I felt the air leave my lungs. That was her logic, her twisted, fragile way of loving. And now she wanted my bone marrow. To live, to keep her mistake alive. I turned to the door. I can't do this, I whispered. Mom grabbed my hand. Please, Cass. You've every right to be angry, but she's your sister, blood or not. I looked down at her trembling hand, and for the first time I realized she was right. We weren't bound by blood. We were bound by pain. Midpoint cliffhanger. I walked out of that hospital room, but this time I didn't feel angry. I felt something far more dangerous. Clarity. Because now I had a choice to make. Save the woman who broke me or let nature take its course. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure which choice would hurt more. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't, but because my mind wouldn't stop replaying every word I'd just heard. Cassandra, you're adopted. 3 words that rewrote my entire life. The family I thought was mine. The sister I thought I hated. The betrayal I thought defined me. Suddenly, none of it was what it seemed. I sat on my couch, the letter from Amanda still in my pocket, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel anger. I felt empty. The world outside was quiet. Rain tapped against the window. And I kept thinking, if I'm not who I thought I was, then who am I? The irony hit me like a cruel joke. I had spent years studying genetics, blood types, DNA, and yet I didn't even know where my own blood came from. And now, that same blood, the one I'd built my identity around, was the thing that could save someone else's life. Someone who had stolen everything from me. The phone rang. I didn't answer. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I picked it up. Cass? It was Dad. His voice was shaking. She's getting worse. They said it's now or never. I didn't say a word. He continued, barely holding it together. She asked for you. Just you. There was a pause. Then I heard his voice crack. If you walk away now, she won't make it to morning. And before I could respond, he hung up. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the dark TV screen, feeling like the universe was daring me to decide. Forgive or forget. I drove without thinking. The road blurred past in streaks of red and white. Every light seemed to flicker just a little too long, as if time itself wanted me to hesitate. When I pulled into the hospital parking lot, it was almost midnight. The place was quiet, except for the hum of machines and rain hitting glass. Inside, I walked past nurses and patients who didn't recognize me. And for the first time, I was grateful. I didn't want anyone to see the mess behind my calm face. When I reached Amanda's door, I stopped. Through the glass, I could see her asleep. Pale, fragile, barely breathing. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven waves. For a moment, I hated her again. Then, I didn't. I just felt sorry. For her. For me. for everything that had been broken long before either of us understood why. My mother was sitting beside her bed. When she saw me, her eyes widened with relief, like she'd been praying and the answer had just walked in. "Cass," she whispered. "Thank you." I didn't reply. I just looked at her and asked quietly, "If I do this, will it change anything?" Her lips trembled. "No, but maybe it will stop the bleeding," I exhaled slowly. That was the most honest thing she'd ever said. The nurse entered with a clipboard. "Dr. Lewis, sorry, Cassandra. Are you ready for the donor screening?" I nodded. "Yeah, let's do it." As she drew my blood, I stared at the syringe filling up. My pulse quickened with a strange thought. That maybe forgiveness wasn't a feeling. Maybe it was just a decision. One drop at a time. Hours passed. Tests, signatures, medical prep. The process was clinical, detached, almost peaceful. But inside, I was chaos. At one point, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time, I didn't see a victim or a savior, just a woman trying to do one good thing before the past drowned her completely. When the nurse returned with the results, she smiled softly. "Good news. You're a perfect match," I froze. Perfect. The word didn't feel comforting, it felt cruel. Because nothing about this situation was perfect. I signed the consent papers anyway. Later, I stood outside the operating room in scrubs. Amanda was already prepped. She looked up at me, eyes glassy from anesthesia. Her lips moved. "Thank you." I almost didn't answer. Then, quietly, I said, "Don't thank me yet." Her eyes fluttered shut, and the nurses wheeled her away. As they began the procedure, I closed my eyes and let the darkness take me. It wasn't pain I felt. It was release. Like every ounce of anger I'd carried was draining out with the blood they took. When I woke up, the room was bright. Amanda's bed was empty. Mom sat by the window, her hands clasped. "She's stable," she said softly. "The transplant worked." I nodded slowly. The words didn't sting the way I thought they would. Instead, there was quiet relief. Not for her survival, but for the part of me that had finally stopped fighting. As I got dressed to leave, Dad walked in, eyes red. He didn't say much, just hugged me. When he pulled back, he whispered, "You did the right thing." I smiled faintly. Maybe. Or maybe I just did the human thing. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled new, clean. And for the first time in a long time, so did I. For the first time in months, I felt light. Not happy, just weightless. Like all the noise inside me had gone quiet. I'd done what I never thought I could. I'd saved the life of the woman who destroyed mine. It should have been the end of the story, but life never ends cleanly. A week later, I received a call. Unknown number. When I answered, a calm voice said, "Dr. Cassandra Lewis? This is St. Helena Medical Records. Your adoption file was recently flagged for verification." My breath caught. "What?" The voice continued. "We received a routine cross-match request. A genetic record check connected to your sister's transplant. It triggered a secondary ID match in our system." I frowned. "Secondary match?" "Yes, ma'am. There's someone else listed under your birth ID. Someone who shares 98% of your genetic code." My throat went dry. "Who?" The line went quiet for a moment. Then the voice said, "Another patient from the early 90s. Female, same blood group, but the file was sealed by request of Dr. Raymond Patel." My heart stopped. Dr. Patel, my mentor, the one who told me to talk to my parents, the one who treated Amanda. Why would he have sealed my adoption file? I drove straight to his office that evening. He was surprised to see me, but not shocked. Almost like he'd been expecting this day. "Cassandra," he said softly, "I was wondering when you'd come." I didn't waste time. Why is my name in a sealed record? And why are you in it? He sighed, motioned for me to sit. You deserve the truth, but I need you to promise me something first, that you'll listen all the way through. I crossed my arms. Talk. He leaned back, eyes heavy with years of unspoken guilt. 32 years ago, there was an experimental gene therapy trial at St. Helena, a new line of research into genetic immunity. 2 infants were enrolled, both terminally ill. One responded miraculously. The other didn't survive. My stomach twisted. What does that have to do with me? He looked at me, voice barely above a whisper. You were the survivor, Cassandra. The child who lived, but your biological mother didn't make it through the delivery. I stared at him, my breath caught between disbelief and dread. So, I was part of an experiment? He shook his head. Not an experiment. A rescue. We were trying to save both babies, but the records were sealed when the hospital came under investigation. Your father, Amanda's father, was one of the lead donors funding the research. When he found out about you, he offered to adopt you privately, to protect the truth. I blinked, stunned. So Amanda knew all this? Dr. Patel nodded slowly. She found out years later. But she wasn't angry at you. She was angry at what your existence represented. Which is what exactly? That her father's money couldn't save her like it saved you. The words hit like thunder. Amanda's jealousy, her sabotage, her fear. It all suddenly made sense. She didn't hate me because I was better. She hated me because I was the living proof of her father's guilt, a reminder of everything he couldn't fix. I stood up, dizzy. So my whole life was built on someone else's secret. Patel nodded. And that's why your mother never told you. She wanted you to live as her daughter, not as a survivor of a scandal. I swallowed hard. I need to talk to her. He nodded gently. She's at the hospital. Amanda's being discharged today. When I arrived, Amanda was sitting in a wheelchair near the window, sunlight spilling across her thin frame. She looked stronger, alive, and when she saw me, she smiled. Hey. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, watching her. The girl who destroyed my life and somehow became part of the reason I survived it all. She noticed my expression. What's wrong? I sat down, my voice low. I talked to Dr. Patel. Her smile faded. Oh, so it's true? She nodded slowly. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I laughed quietly. Seems like that's a pattern with us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she said something I didn't expect. I used to think you were my biggest mistake. But you were actually my mirror. Everything I hated about myself, I saw in you. Her voice cracked. And now that I know the truth, I realize you were the only part of this family that was real. I blinked back tears. For once, her words didn't feel like manipulation. They felt like surrender. I reached out and took her hand. She looked surprised. I don't forgive you, I said quietly. But I don't hate you anymore either. Her lips trembled. That's enough. When I left the hospital, the sunset was spilling gold across the sky. It looked like the world was starting over. And maybe so was I. I wasn't Cassandra the researcher, or Cassandra the victim, or Cassandra the revenge story. I was just a woman who learned that sometimes the truth hurts less than the lies we build to protect it. And as I walked away, I finally understood. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with release. People say forgiveness sets you free, but no one ever tells you how heavy freedom feels at first. When I left that hospital, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel like a hero or a savior. I just felt human, and that, I realized, was enough. The next few weeks were quiet. No reporters, no hospital visits, no family drama. Just silence. It was strange, learning to live without chaos. For so long, my identity was built around what Amanda had done to me. My anger had been my engine. Now that it was gone, I had to ask myself, who was I when I wasn't broken? One morning, I received a letter in the mail. No name, no return address. Just my first name written in Amanda's shaky handwriting. I opened it carefully. Cass, you didn't have to save me. But you did. And that's something I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve. I've started therapy. Mom and Dad are healing too. I don't expect you to come back. I just hope someday we can both stop being defined by what went wrong and start living for what might still go right. Thank you for giving me another chance at life. I hope you give yourself one too. Amanda. I folded the letter slowly and smiled faintly. For the first time, her words didn't sting. They felt real. Maybe people can change. Not overnight. Not perfectly. But slowly, like wounds that finally decide to scar instead of bleed. I started working again. Not in the same research lab, but in a small community clinic. It wasn't prestigious or groundbreaking, but it was peaceful. And peace, I realized, was more valuable than pride. Every so often, I caught myself looking at patients' faces. The hope in their eyes, the fear, the trust. And I thought of Amanda. How fragile life is. How easily love can turn into rivalry. And how strange it is that the same blood that causes pain can also be the one thing that saves it. One evening, as I was closing up the clinic, a little girl came in with her mother. The girl had a scraped knee. Nothing serious, but she was crying like the world had ended. I cleaned the wound gently and said, "You're okay. You're stronger than you think." She sniffled and asked, "Did it ever happen to you?" I smiled softly. "Something like that." She grinned, brave again, and I realized that's how healing starts. Not in a single grand moment, but in small, quiet ones we don't even notice. That night, as I locked up and stepped outside, the air was cool and clean. I looked up at the stars, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone. Amanda was alive. My parents were finally speaking again, and I was learning to breathe in a life that wasn't built on revenge, but on release. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd save the woman who destroyed me, I would have laughed in their face. But life has a way of forcing you to meet your pain head on, until you realize it's not there to break you, but to reveal you. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who teach us what love actually costs. And sometimes forgiveness isn't a gift you give them. It's the key that unlocks your own freedom. Gentle pause. The narrator's tone slows, contemplative. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever felt like someone took everything from you, remember this. You don't heal by winning the war. You heal by deciding the war is over, because peace isn't found in revenge. It's found in finally being able to say, "I'm done carrying this." Before you scroll away, I want to ask you something. If you were in my place, would you have saved her? Or would you have walked away? Tell me in the comments below, because your answer might just tell you who you really are. And if stories like this move you, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell, so you never miss a story that hits this deep again. Soft outro music cue, reflective tone. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about revenge. It was a story about truth, and the courage it takes to stop running from it. My name is Cassandra. I'm 32 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm finally free. Subscribe now for more stories that make you feel. And don't forget, your thoughts matter. Drop a comment. I read every single one.